This is my audience. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. So to start off, I just want you to imagine a scenario in your head. Imagine a 14-year-old basketball player who is excited to start off his season, really excited, really is passionate about basketball, and just really wants to pursue that in life. And imagine that one game in his season, he gets hit in the head, but he's too embarrassed to say anything, and his coach doesn't notice. And so he keeps on playing through the pain, and then a week later he gets hit again, and then his season's over. He may even be told by doctors that he's not even ever allowed to play sports again. These are real life injuries, second impact syndrome coming from concussions. These factors can lead to athletes' lives being changed forever. So with that, I'm here to tell you guys about why concussion training should be mandatory for both athletes and coaches. So I played sports, I think all of you guys know that by now, and I personally never had a concussion, but I witnessed a lot of my teammates get concussions. They're very serious, they're dangerous, and they're scary. It's really hard to look at your teammate get hit and then she doesn't stand back up. It's scary to watch everybody swarm to her, and it's just not something that should be taken lightly. So first, I'm going to go over why concussions are such a serious issue. Then I'll talk about how these trainings will prevent these, or at least help to combat the risk. And then finally, I'll just show you and talk to you about what sports could look like if these trainings were made mandatory. So really quickly, an undiagnosed concussion leads to more than just a headache. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys already know a lot about concussions and some of the typical symptoms like headache, dizziness, nausea, and they can last for weeks. But some of them can also be so small that you don't really realize that you might have a concussion. Really quick, I have just this little picture diagram. It's probably hard to see. It just shows the sequence of what happens when you hit your head hard enough to get a concussion. Obviously you have fluid around the brain, but if you get hit hard enough, your brain can hit the skull, and that's what leads to a concussion. Some of them are harder to detect than others, but they're all just as dangerous. Likewise, concussions are very common, and not a lot of athletes will speak up about them. So in an article found from the Journal of Neuroscience Nursing, it says, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that about 135,000 children between the ages of 5 and 18 are treated in the emergency room each year for concussion as a result of participation in sports-related activities. However, these numbers may represent significant underestimates because recent reports indicate that about 300,000 sports-related concussions occur annually, with children aged 14 to 19 exhibiting 3 times more in 2007 as compared with 1997. So it's kind of a long paragraph, but what that tells us is that, yes, there are a lot of young athletes that are treated for concussions, but there are honestly even more that won't speak up about it and later deal with the more serious complications from it. And going along with this, young athletes especially are at a higher risk for concussions because their brains are still developing. So going forward, most coaches have no medical training. Medical training isn't really required, but just being able to understand the basics when it comes to concussions is really important. In an article put out by the CDC, it reads that pediatric concussions recovery may involve heightened irritability, changes in sleep patterns, delayed cognitive milestones, or behavioral changes. Neurological rehabilitation after concussion in children focuses on cognitive exercises, structured routines, and careful monitoring to support healthy brain development. Early detection in pediatric cases is particularly crucial because the developing brain is more vulnerable to repeated injuries. So if a concussion is not noticed, there is a chance that the athlete can be sent back into the game. If they get hit again, that's what can lead to something that we know as second impact syndrome, which can lead to lifelong complications. There's multiple cases of well-known, famous athletes who have dealt with this, and it's a prime example of it's real, and some people don't realize the risks. Too many concussions are left untreated because athletes and coaches are unable to recognize these symptoms. So how can we combat this? Here are some really, in my opinion, really doable solutions. First off, concussion training for athletes. Players need to be able to identify symptoms. If you get hit in the head and you don't feel right, you need to say something about it because you just should not take that lightly. Additionally, if the team knows the risks of these injuries, it'll be easier for your teammates to hold you accountable. I've seen it. Like, I personally have told my teammates, like, no, like, you need to tell the coach, you need to tell the trainer, you just got hit because that's not good. Just in general, it helps to hold each other accountable because there is kind of a stigma in athletes to not want to say anything because they don't want to disappoint anybody. They don't want to let down their coach, or they want more playing time. In an article by Complete Concussions, it says athletes build relationships with teammates and coaching staff on and off the field. They become friends and mentors. Athletes often don't want to let these people down. If they get a concussion, they may feel they need to sacrifice their health for the good of the team. 5 more minutes of playing time is not worth risking a lifetime of having brain injuries. And the second solution is concussion training for coaches. There are so many resources online that are literally like 20 minutes. Right now I coach a 14s volleyball team, so I just coach a bunch of like 14-year-old girls. They're great, and part of the coaching process is I have to go through a bunch of background screenings and trainings and stuff like that, and part of that is concussion training. All that to say that in order to even be able to coach, especially youth sports, you have to go through a lot of qualifications. And so even if a program doesn't already have that, it really isn't too much to ask to include something to educate the coaches. Coaches are in charge of looking after these athletes, and they should have, like I said before, they don't need to be medical professionals, but they should at least know the basics to be able to properly look after these athletes. An example of this is the CDC heads-up training. So, really quick, I wasn't able to make like a PowerPoint or anything. I can't screen it on my TV, but I'm gonna show you guys. If you literally just look up the CDC heads-up training, it takes you to this website, and right here is the button to take the quiz, or not the quiz, but the training. And under it is a whole list of other resources involving questions about concussions, symptoms, how to handle if you think an athlete has one. Just all of the resources are literally right here. Further proving my point that it's doable and it should be required. Having these concussion trainings will just increase the safety for athletes. Now, how would this change athletics? Honestly, only good things could come from it. Athletes that feel safe to report concussions, to report any injuries, are more protected. Second impact syndrome will go down. In general, just complications will go down. Athletes will be safer to just pursue their sports. And everybody feels safer. I think additionally, parents will feel safer as well, knowing that the coach and the athletic training team have good eyes and are able to look out for those things. And if we don't implement these trainings, athletes may continue to hide and coaches might continue to miss these symptoms, leading to them being more at risk. These trainings really could be the difference between an athlete having a great career in their sport or having to deal with lifetime brain injuries. So all in all, providing and requiring trainings can only lead to increased safety. Without it, we continue to put athletes at risk, and we just shouldn't play that game. To conclude, I went over the importance of concussion education and how these trainings should be mandatory, and how athletes shouldn't be put at risk because of their and our, as coaches, lack of knowledge. Even just one training could save a life. Choose to advocate. I challenge you guys, if you ever coach, I don't know if you guys played sports, if you have a sibling that plays sports, or just in general, any sort of athletic thing, just make sure that they know the risks and don't take it lightly. It's really easy to underestimate injuries, but just don't. And that is that. Thank you.